Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan for our midweek mashup on Inside the Birds. Look, Eagles made a big trade. We got intel on it. Eagles won a big game. We got breakdown of it. Eagles got a big game coming up. We got preview on it. We got everything for you on this episode of Inside the Birds. I'm excited about going into it. Adam, the biggest thing right now as we go into I guess it's going to be week 8, which is amazing, right? Like halfway through the year, is that the Eagles are 6-1. The Kansas City Chiefs are atop the AFC. It feels like we're on a collision course for I know a lot can happen, but it sure feels like we're on a collision course for a redo in the Super Bowl, huh?
Well, they play what? I think it's after the bye, right? Week 11, I believe they play each other.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's on a Monday night. I didn't realize it was on a Monday night. Holy smokes!
Thanksgiving week, right? Isn't that Thanksgiving week?
It's good call. Yeah, it's it's November 20th, and I mean, wow. So they got by Miami. That was good. Pretty dominant win. We'll get into that and some additional information that we have on it. That was an impressive win for them.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they have a situation. They play the Commandos again, and that was a strange game, that first one. It shouldn't have been close as it was, but hey, Washington played well in that game. But they're playing the most sacked quarterback in the National Football League this week, so we'll see how that goes. But look, they're one of only 2 teams to be 6-1. That is, with the roster not being as good as last year. And that's just really impressive. And with all their injuries and everything that they're dealing with, to be 6-1, you could say whatever you want about who they played. I know they've had a good schedule. And so, by the way, Miami hadn't played anyone either. It's just impressive, man, to be 6-1 with all that they've had to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a league of parity, and both teams look different, by the way. The Chiefs don't look the same as they did last year. And I'm sure their fans have the same question. Well, it doesn't, but they're 6-1, playing really good defense. And then the Eagles, again, don't always look the same, but all that matters is you win games. 6-1. I'm excited to go through this Miami Dolphins game. There were some really interesting things about it that we'll get into. And of course, a big trade that I'm looking forward to breaking down with you as well. Obviously, it's a big week in Inside the Birds, which of course is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Q&A, man, they hit the ground running this week. Great numbers on the show. People really wanted to hear their opinion on the Kevin Byard trade. It was good. Their breakdown of the game from A to Z was fantastic. So you got to catch Q&A. They were really on their game. Greg Cosell and Clay Harbor will also be on their game now on Thursday. That'll come out Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell, Clay Harbor. Always look forward to that. And this week, Adam, the Gun Show, which will be out later today, Wednesday, for people who catch it early, Gun on One with former Eagles first-round pick Marcus Smith, who is doing a lot with his nonprofit foundation called Circle of M Foundation. What he wants to do and help do is, as he explains, is he's gotten himself right mentally. He went through some real major depression and anxiety. He's written about it. He had a close brush with suicide that he's spoken about. What is he doing now that he's turned his life around? He's trying to help other athletes not go down the same path he had to go to. So he's got a Circle of M Foundation devoted to spreading awareness on mental health. And he had a really good, candid conversation about it with Derek Gunn on this week's Gun on One. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And I also want to thank our friends at Fringe Bar. It was a great host site for our pregame show this past week. I know we'll be back there again soon. I don't know if it's this weekend, but it'll be back soon. But what a great place to have a pregame show. Really enjoyed it.
The location is amazing, right? Literally on Delaware Avenue. I mean, the parking was easy. Great venue for us. And one thing, don't forget, all of Derek's shows are on our platform. So you could see the interview with Lane Johnson. Brandon BG. Who else do we have?
Oh, he had a great one with Mike Quick last week. About playing in that era and his viewpoints on the on AJ Brown breaking his records, which another one just fell this past game. So Mike Quick was great. The first offensive lineman ever coached by Jeff Stoutland from Cornell University. Cool. Yeah. That was a really good one. And I know one with Ray Didinger is coming up soon too.
Oh, nice. Ray Diddy.
Yeah, that's going to be a great Gun on One.
And also with Clay and Cosell, but listen to Greg's breakdown of Byard on Thursday. I know Greg watched a lot of Titans tape, so I'm very interested to see because we talked to personnel people this week, and Greg sees more tape than pretty much anyone that I know. It's not personnel people don't have time to watch 32 teams. They get the pro guys give it. They only know the teams that they're assigned. Greg
Right.
looks at all tape, so I'm really looking forward to see what those guys say.
Absolutely. Same here. And I know that Clay is very, very excited about the whole National Tight End Day thing and Dallas Goedert having a touchdown. So I'm sure he's going to
Right.
break down exactly how that screen game came into fruition for the Eagles.
That is coming back. We've been waiting for it. The bubble screens haven't always worked, but that was a good one, and that was good to see because Goddard's had some over the years. We forget because Goddard's usage is because AJ Brown is the man, and Devontae's pretty good. So Goddard's usage is in and out. But man, when you get because he's so athletic, when they get those screens going, because you've seen it. You see George Kittle, all the athletic tight ends in the National Football League. When you get those tunnel screens, hide screens, bubble screens, man, they are a beauty when they work.
Yep, and I do think that they were in response to something Miami was doing. So we'll get into our discussion of that to make that screen game come alive. For our Patreon followers, next Tuesday is the deadline, the trade deadline. So I never assume Howie Roseman's done, even though he's pulled off one trade already. So yeah,
like for instance, I'll give you an example of how he wasn't done in 2020. They tried to get Slay. They were. It was more that Lions didn't want to do the deal. The Eagles were ready to get Slay, and then they got him the next year. Whatever that they got him in 2020, right? Is that what they got?
Yeah, 2021 actually.
Right? No, it was 2020. That's correct. 2020.
Oh, okay.
So they tried the year before, and they were fairly close. They just couldn't get it done because the Lions they couldn't agree on a deal. So they try the next year. Howie, as we know, is the most aggressive general manager. Doesn't get everything he wants. The other team's got to say yes, but it's always fascinating around the trade deadline. Heck, I go back to 2017. We've talked about this over the years when they had a very serious conversation with the personnel department, the coaches, about should they go for it because are they being honest? Do they really think they could win the Super Bowl? The answer was yes. At least they were going to go for it. You never know if you can win it. And they made a decision to make the trade for J.J. So it's really interesting, these trade deadlines, what winds up happening, sometimes what does not wind up happening, which we'll get into.
True. And sometimes the best trades are the one you don't make, which we've discussed on a few occasions with the Eagles as well.
Oh, Allen Robinson. He would have been an Eagle had the Rams not come in. That was going to happen. Calvin Ridley, as you recall. You remember that story.
Sure.
With Calvin Ridley. That was done. It was done. It was close, but the Eagles found out what he was dealing with, so they couldn't do it. So it's amazing, as you just said. What you never know what's going to. Not getting Russell Wilson, right? Not getting Deshaun Watson. Just think about the luck. Sometimes, hey,
sometimes that's how it works. So obviously, you'll have your Discord chat for our Patreon members tonight, and then next Tuesday we'll do a trade deadline, a trade deadline live stream for
right after the day of,
after it. Yep,
live stream that night. This coming Tuesday, the 31st. It'll be what 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll let you know on the Patreon page. So check us out.
All right, let's get into the big transactions. The Eagles made a trade. It's funny. They made some addition, and some might say they also made some addition by subtraction in acquiring Kevin Byard, a two-time All-Pro safety for the Tennessee Titans, who has spent his entire career, a guy from Philly, who has from Middle Tennessee State, just like Reed Blankenship. But yes, he comes over to the Titans in exchange for some 5th and 6th round picks in 2024 and Terrell Edmunds. So it's weird. It didn't really address depth at the position because you went one safety for another, but obviously talent is
upgrade.
Unquestionably it's an upgrade for the Eagles.
Yeah. So basically, by the way, both 5th and 6th round picks are conditional. Let me explain the conditions. So there's one little note I looked into and I laughed when I heard it. I know you probably see my notes, and if you see it, you'll be like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." But this is just the way these things work out. So the Titans will get the better of the picks in each round. So what happens is the Eagles owned the Buccaneers 5th round pick. That was the trade where the Bucs wanted the 5th round pick. They wanted to get Trey Palmer, who they selected, and the Eagles got the Bucs got the Eagles 6th, where they got Trey Palmer, and the Eagles got the Bucs 5th this year. So whatever pick and the pick that could be conveyed will be the better of the two picks. And obviously It won't be the Eagles pick because they're going to go a lot farther. So then you've got So basically it's the Vikings fifth is the one in the Rager trade. It was conditional fourth if you recall, but the Vikings cut Rager, so the pick that conveyed is the fifth. So it'll be the better of whatever picks they get. It's that Bucks fifth or that Vikings fifth. And then the comical thing is the 6th round pick. I was like, where's the 6th round pick? Because I was looking at the personnel notice. It says Titans pick. I'm like, well, what other trade did they make? Okay, let me see. DeMarco Murray. Okay, AJ Brown pick, but those are straight 1st and 3rd round picks. The Ugo Amadi trade.
I don't even remember the Ugo Amadi trade.
Yeah, remember he came here from Tennessee. The Eagles were dying at safety for depth, and they the Titans they needed safeties. So the Eagles got the Titans 6th round pick from this season. I'm usually like the one who remembers all the little minutia. The name Ugo Amadi doesn't even ring a bell with me. That's how. Oh, you remember him? He was the guy that got from Seattle. Come on, you remember that?
Now I remember. Okay, for some reason
right with the name, because we were like, is it how do you pronounce it?
That's right. Ugo? I mean, he literally had a cup of coffee here. I mean, like,
right. Maybe he played a previous game. I don't know, but so basically, the first pick will either be the 5th rounder will be the Buccaneers or the Vikings pick. And the 6th round pick will be the Tennessee or Eagles. I guess Eagles or Titans, whatever is better. And obviously the Titans pick will be better.
You would think. Yes, you would think. So, okay. So that is the trade in a nutshell. What the Eagles got, Eagles gave up. So let's just finish off transactions before we get into, who Kevin Byard is at this stage of his career and what he's going to be in the Eagles defense. The other transactions are that Julio Jones and Mekhi Garner revert back to the practice squad. Now Garner's been activated twice, if I'm not mistaken. So elevated. So he has 1 left. Julio Jones has 2 left, although we'd sort of both be surprised, right? If he's sees all 3 elevations. I don't know. I would think that they would want to get him on the 53 when they can. So we'll see what happens with that. What else happened, Adam, in Eagles transactions?
On Tuesday they from the practice squad they released again Tywan Mullen and Mario Goodrich. They re-signed your guy Brandon Smith from Penn State, and they brought back Noah Ellis to the practice squad as well. Interesting,
I think. Yeah. Goodrich went from a guy they did not want to waive at the end of training camp and they wind up keeping him and Ricks, right, to a guy who's now been waived a few times.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. Like Noah Ellis is back again. Brandon Smith is he's a perfect developmental guy. Yeah, sure, he was overdrafted by the Panthers, but he's a former 4th rounder. But look, he's got size. You could see what he can do, and they need to develop linebackers in terms of depth for the future for sure. Off the ball linebackers like Smith. So they take a look at him. Mario Goodrich is a guy. Look, they've learned a lot. Garner now has contributed. This has been a nice story. Obviously, Eli Ricks is definitely contributing. Boy, that's been a nice story. So Goodrich has become kind of expendable.
Yeah, it's just funny how things change so much in 8 weeks. But we'll see what happens. I mean, there might be some more practice squad tango knowing the Eagles going on over the next few weeks, because these names keep getting recycled. The Noah Ellis one is interesting. He's not necessarily a recycle guy because he's back now since the summer, I think, for the first time. So I wonder what prompted them to feel like they needed that guy. They've got 7 defensive first of all, they have 7 defensive tackles on the 53. I know. They've got, don't they still have the other defensive? No, they don't have the one from Houston anymore, right?
No, the kid Thomas Booker, they do. Yeah,
yeah, they still have him. Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's weird. It's definitely strange.
So they literally have 9 defensive tackles altogether on the 69 now.
That's crazy. I know. That's in fact, I mean, a personal guy you and I know was dumbfounded why the Eagles keep 7 defensive tackles. But hey, you know what though? Look, they've had, first of all, it's come in handy because they've had injuries there.
Yes.
So you just never know. Look, the craziness of the Titans potentially getting back the 6th-round pick they give up for Ugo. This is the strangeness of the Eagles transactions. This rarely happens that you trade a pick to a team and you get it back potentially. The same exact pick. It's hilarious. So look, you see how they manage to practice, but Noel is back again. You never know. Look, they obviously like the guy. He's huge. They have really good run game, guys. So it's probably the chances of him ever being activated are slim to none because they're so deep, as you said, at defensive tackle. But they like the guy and they like the practice.
They do. All right. So those are all the transactions that have happened so far since the game ended on Sunday night. Let's get into the Byard trade and everything that entails it. But before we do that, let's stop and hear a word from our great friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay. Why don't we start with, we've got to look at the contract. We got to look at the role. We have to look at why Tennessee wanted to deal him away in the first place. He is known as a commendable guy, a great leader. Again, he's from Philly. I think he moved, I think by the time in high school, he was in Georgia, but he is originally from Philly. Yeah.
He was 14 years old. This is a really good note that I got from a good Titans source. So he said, depending on who you speak with the Titans over the years, they would have said, again, this is just to be clear, it depends on who you spoke with, whether a coach, front office person. You could have said the leaders on the team were A.J. Brown on offense, Ryan Tannehill, and Kevin Byard. Eagles have 2 of those leaders. I just was, it seems so simple, but so funny.
Yeah.
So amazing. Now, obviously they got Byard. They wanted Byard. They really, they needed a safety. They got a safety. They've been looking. We're going to get into who else they looked at and so forth over the course of the show. But the bottom line is, just to bring in this type of guy in your locker room at this stage, it's just remarkable. And when you and I did those 2020 shows, how bad the locker room was, Doug Peterson's last year wasn't just the young receivers. It just was not good. The chemistry was not good. Now you look at it now, so many leaders on this team that, yes, it's a talented team, but talent only takes you so far. You remember you know it better than me because you were there on a daily basis. The Dream Team in 2011.
Oh, I remember.
The locker room was terrible. Yep,
very bad. Very bad.
Locker room chemistry and accountability is super big with the players, and obviously starting with Sirianni. So this is who they got: an unbelievable guy, Walter Payton Man of the Year. If you read the transcript from Mike Vrabel on Tuesday, and he had to talk about it. And he has some input of personnel. If you remember when A.J. Brown was traded, if you remember because it was the day of the draft, when they put the video on him, how he had to walk away. He was so pissed off.
Yeah.
So, think about it. You're taking 2 leaders of that team from their roster. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you think he was pissed off then, imagine how he feels now watching A.J. Brown just.
Oh, I know. I don't see the media asking him because it's 2 years now.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they asked him last year. To your point, I do wonder. And Byard is 30. She turned in August. People can debate whether he's the same player he once was, but he was a starter. He's incredibly durable, a leader, and the fact that they agreed to the trade on Monday afternoon, unless they. I can't imagine that he won't be able to learn some nuances in the defense. He's healthy. He should play this Sunday. The question is, do they want to start him and doing what they've done this season, have the guy play every snap?
Oh, you know what? It wouldn't shock me if he did. Now, I don't know. They're still thin at safety. So Reed Blankenship has to come back. We'll see if he's back, but we don't know as of right this second. So, obviously you saw Sidney Brown played like 90% of the game against the Dolphins, and Terrell Edmonds played a whole lot too. So we'll see.
Edmonds played his last game. He played every snap. What? Yep.
Every snap. The guy played 0 snaps against the Rams and
He was
every
benched.
snap against the Dolphins. That's just
He
shows
only
you.
played on specials, right? Which tells you really what they thought of him. You don't have to guess. The information tells you when you take a guy and you bend when you don't. It's like, okay, I'll give you an example. Kevon Wallace was cut by the Cardinals on Tuesday. Kevon Wallace started the first 5 games.
Yeah,
The next week he was benched. The next week they cut him.
pretty amazing. By the way, the Eagles may want to look at Kevon Wallace.
I
If they're
know.
again, they're still thin at safety. They
Sure.
just traded one for a better one. That's all.
Right. Now he's subject to waivers, so he could be claimed later today. He was cut on Tuesday. But on your point on safety, right? So Byard's healthy. We'll see about Blankenship later today when the injury report comes out. Now, we don't know if there are any injury pop-ups yet because they did not list any injuries in game. And we don't know who came in Monday because, again, the game was Sunday night. We don't know who came in Monday for treatment, and we don't know who's going to work on Wednesday. So we'll see if they added anybody. We'll get the injury report in a couple minutes here. But Blankenship and Roby were the 2 guys who did not play last week. But it's safety because obviously the starter's going to be Byard and Blankenship, and Brown's the third. Garner's on the practice squad right now, so they don't even have a 4th safety.
They got 2 more weeks until Justin Evans comes off IR.
And who knows if he does?
If he comes right, if he's
They don't have you. This is a great point you made. I hadn't even thought about that. Just because they got Byard doesn't mean that they haven't solved a depth issue. They solved a starter issue, yes.
Correct.
They haven't solved the depth issue.
No, they have not solved the depth issue, but they are better. And then some of the issue could solve itself if Brown can stay healthy and Justin Evans can come back healthy. But obviously, Justin Evans has been plagued by injuries throughout his career, so you can't really rely on that as well. So let's get into who Byard is, because first of all, he doesn't have to be in this defense a 2-time All-Pro safety to be a good player or to be helping this defense. By nature of just him being a good safety, an experienced safety, he's going to be an upgrade over Terrell Edmonds. But Adam, he did take a pay cut this year, right? And usually it's a little his contract. They asked him to do that, right? To stay on the team. Yep. So that tells me they probably felt going into this year at 30 years old, he was not the player that he was 4 to 5 years ago.
Right. Remember, Rand Carthon is their new general manager. He didn't draft him. And the last time, Byard's been a Pro Bowler twice and a All-Pro twice. And it was 2017, his second year, and in 2021 he was. That was the last Pro Bowl and All-Pro. So obviously 2 years ago he was a stud, super durable, a leader, smart. Now the knocks from a personnel standpoint, from the first guy we talked to, he said he's just not making plays on the ball like he used to. That's always subjective. I mean, you could always obviously look at passes defense, certain numbers, but that doesn't always tell the story. It's really tape based. What is he doing around the ball? He still had 4 picks last year. He had a high of 8 in 2017, which is enormous at safety.
Huge.
That's a huge number.
That's CJ Gardner Johnson numbers right there,
Big
man.
time, right? Exactly, big time, and he's more physical than Gardner Johnson. He's a well built guy.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that someone pointed out to me after this trade, and I didn't even think of this, but now we may have to, so we've got to talk about it. If they do not make a trade for a veteran or a veteran nickel, once Roby comes back, if he's the nickel, once he's cleared to play, and a nickel player is considered a starting player.
Yes.
And I've not seen this before. We'd have to research this. I'm maybe for Sunday's show we'll research it, but I think this is interesting. They'll be the only team, not only the NFL, we've not heard this before, and I'm counting a nickel as a starter. 4 out of their 5 starting defenders are 30 years or older. That's like unheard of.
That is pretty. That Joe Banner would definitely not approve of that. We know.
And we're going to be having Joe on soon, by the way. Yes,
yeah.
For Patreon, we will be having him on. Yeah, he did say that when he was on Patreon in the spring. He said he had an issue with going with 2 older corners because it's just not done. Knock on wood, but it's not that they're not talented. It's all about health, because the data shows in their 30s that players break down. But the bottom line is that's really risky. But we'll see. That again, as you said, this Tuesday is the trade deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern. They've got time here. Oh, and also, by the way, they were they looked into Jeremy Chin. We're told. I know people had asked if they definitely looked into it.
And that shouldn't be a surprise. We know how high he was on their board in 2020. Right.
Yep, he was the backup plan to to Jalen Hurts. Now, Chin, this is an interesting story. I had heard that earlier this week that Chin was out for several weeks with a quadriceps injury.
Mm-hmm.
The game that he got hurt in the first quarter. He didn't even leave the game. He finished the game.
With a torn quad?
I'm not sure. Well, if you fully tear your quad, that's months you're out.
Well, even if partial tear, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, when I say good, I mean that's very gutty.
Right, exactly. So I don't know exactly what the quadriceps is. It's just a strain or whatever, but it's pretty interesting. And to get back to Byard and Blankenship going to the same school. Like,
Mhm.
what are the chances? Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah, I mean that's the oddness is that you can find Georgia guys all over the Eagles defense, but two guys from Middle Tennessee State that at the same position. That's crazy.
I know, and I think I didn't Blankenship say maybe they were asking him about when he was drafted. What was it after he was signed as an undrafted free agent? Maybe someone said like, I think it's out there somewhere that maybe thought that was his hero or something, or the guy he looked up to, something like that. Well, obviously they didn't play together, but it's an amazing story.
Yeah, definitely an amazing story. Is Kevin Byard on the team next year on the Eagles?
Well, okay, let's get into that. So let's get into the contract intel. So he agreed to a $3 million pay reduction, which they would make up in incentives. So the total comp for the season with the Titans was $14.1 million. It's lowered to 11 million. The 11 million was 4 million base salary, 7 million signing bonus. The Eagles are now responsible for only the prorated portion of the 4 million. So it's loosely around 2 million, give or take, which is nothing. His salary next year, which was adjusted, it was adjusted at the time of the renegotiation back in, I think, July, or before training camp. The 9.6 million is not guaranteed. We checked into it, which is the final year of the deal. The total compensation due in 2024 is 13.6 million. None of it's guaranteed. He's got a 4 million roster plus a $9.6 million base salary. And look, the bottom line is, if they want him back, if he plays well and they go, gosh, we have to have him back, they just negotiate with the agent. They figure it out together how they're going to work it. If it turns 31 for the 24th season, you got the veteran corners are locked into for next year by structure. You're asking for a lot. You just asked me, could he be back next year? The odds are against it based on age, but
right.
Again,
that's right. How much would it cost them to not have him on do they have to inherit a whole lot or anything?
Nothing. They inherit all the proration. It's nothing. You just got them and nothing. But again, teams never look at it. They have to look at the cap implications, which you're looking at, but they never look at it like it's not going to work. It's a good problem to have. If he plays lights out, they go, God, we cannot walk away from this guy. We love him. He's unbelievable. They'll figure out with the agent what makes sense from a contractual standpoint for the club so it doesn't hurt them. In terms of restructuring, you're going to have to guarantee money. He's not going to play next year without a guarantee, some sort of guarantee. But they got to be careful. This is you're barking up the wrong tree with so many older players. But you know what? High character guys, competitive. You love having them around. It's a good problem to have. But one of the teams simply are not willing to do. And as we said with Roby this year, to have two safeties, two corners, and your nickel back, 4 out of 5 to be 30 years or older is absolutely unheard of. I've not heard that before, but you know what? So far it's worked.
So far it has worked. You're right. Wow. Every single starter in the secondary other than Reed Blankenship was going to be over 30. That's quite amazing. That is really, especially for the Eagles, the franchise that sort of, I don't want to say revolutionized, but the franchise that never wanted you past 30 back in the 90s and 2000s. So that's really interesting. All right.
I give him credit for it. Yeah. Because, as you were alluding to, because Banner, Joe was not against this, but he was against when he was there. When they said goodbye to beat the Doc, it was, believe it or not, it was less about ages. It was about how his tape looked. They just went by the tape. They saw him regressing. And somehow he not only picked up his career, but became a Pro Bowler with the Broncos. What an amazing story. But it's what the tape shows you. It's where the guys are at. And that'll tell them eventually after the season's over, and hopefully for their sake, after the Super Bowl win, right? They'll have to make a decision. But it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here, because they are complete. And by the way, this is another thing. They were going for it. Are you kidding me? When you do make this trade, you're going for it.
Yes.
I know it's not a major trade, but you're going for it.
I think it's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty big because he's got credentials and he's in the upgrade that you get from what you had to him, even with Byard just at this point, maybe just being a good instead of great player is still significant. So for a team that has a lot of good players and is a Super Bowl and 6-1, that it's pretty significant. So yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely a sign that they're trying to go for it here and
It's
fix as
helpful,
many
man.
issues
Yeah,
as they can.
we could all come up with our own term, what's significant or not, what's major or whatever. AJ Brown, that's a major trade. That's like super huge, and it's obviously turned out to be way better than they expect. I mean, my God, we'll get to him later in the show, but it's just this is where they're at. And look, they've got a nickel problem. Do they want to go forward with? We'll talk more about this in Monday's show. Do they want to still go forward with Josh Jobe as their top outside backup corner? Okay, that's fine. They could do that. They'll have to make that decision, and they'll see what. Because one of the things is talking to teams this week, some teams are like, and this happens, it seems ridiculous, but it happens every year. Some teams they have to make a decision based on where they are on the standings after this Sunday's games. If they think they're done, like, what will the Vikings do with Danielle Hunter? Not the Eagles are involved, but what will they do with Danielle Hunter if they lose Sunday? And they would be what 3-4 or 3, whatever the heck it is.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to trade him or not? He's on a final year risk deal.
Right.
They have to look at it. Yeah, if they go 3, if they lose, they'll be 3-5. Washington with their high end off defensive line. If they lose to the Eagles this Sunday, which is probably probable, if they do, they'll be 3-5. We're going to start shipping guys out. I know it's ridiculous as it sounds. If the Titans lose this week, are they going to completely So I know some Titan fans are saying they packed it in trading Byard. You can certainly say that if they lose this Sunday. Are they packing that's where the league is at?
100%. So I guess we'll see. It's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a very exciting trade deadline. It's starting to pick up in the NFL compared to what it was 20 years ago, and we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Let's get into Eagles.
On that,
yeah.
Real quick. Let me add what you just said. It started in 2012. The GMs went to the management council and the NFLPA and said, "Guys, can we move this trade deadline back 2 weeks? Because we need more time to make a decision." That, on your point, it was so slow, the trades, and then in 2012 when they agreed to move it back 2 weeks, it changed everything. Plus, the younger general managers, guys were more aggressive, like Howie and others. And those guys are aggressive. And the John Robinson you mentioned, who was the former Titans GM, was very aggressive. That changed everything, moving it back 2 weeks. I just want to crowbar that in because that's exactly what's important.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get to Eagles injuries now. And we're not, listen, we've seen the last few weeks on a Wednesday after practice, somebody pops in there that we didn't know got hurt in the game. So we're just going to stick with what we know right now coming out of the game. We know Quez Watkins still has 2 more games. He's on IR with the hamstring injury. So he has at least, I should say, 2 more games before they have to make a decision on his 21-day window. Cam Jurgens, 1 more game. Opeta's been doing a pretty good job, but 1 more game for Cam Jurgens. That'll be this Washington game. And then we'll see if he's able to be activated into the 21-day window for next week, leading into the Cowboys game. So that'll be interesting. On defense, Bradley Roby is, I guess we have to find out.
I have him as iffy. Sorry.
Say that again.
I have him as iffy. For this week. Very, very iffy. I don't know exactly what it is. Oh, by the way, with Watkins, the earliest he can return is week 11. The Eagles have a bye.
Right.
It's
good point.
The 3rd game of the IR is this game. Week 9 is game 4. They have a bye in week 10. So the earliest he could return is at the Chiefs in week 11. So their depth at receiver is still going to be what it is. We'll see about Roby. Everything I've heard would say he's pretty iffy, very questionable, doubtful. We'll see if we can get on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Blankenship, we'll see later today. And as you mentioned, Evans, 2 more games. We have no idea the severity of it. So you made such a good point earlier. Byard, yeah, is an upgrade, obviously, but their depth issue is not solved. It's
no, and you know what?
I don't know.
We'll talk about it when we go over the Dolphins game a little bit, but there are certain things that the Dolphins do within the framework of their offense that we mentioned that actually helped the Eagles out a lot with some of their personnel packages, because the Eagles didn't have to play a slot corner as much as they ordinarily would, because the Dolphins are not a heavy 11 team like they play a lot more 12 and 21 and 22, which kind of helped the Eagles out in a way, because they didn't have to have a slot guy on the field as much. But this week, totally different, right? You know, the Commanders are going to have a bunch of receivers out there and try to, spread the field as much as they can.
100%. That's coming. They did it. McLaurin, the Eagle killer. Even your guy Dotson from Penn State, every once in a while he does something. They can't figure it out with him for whatever reason. But you're always worried about that. But yeah, the injury, because as we said against coming into the Miami game, the tight ends only block; they don't throw it to them. I don't even think their tight ends had a target in the game. They don't really use the third receiver. It's like, can you slow those guys down? And I was so impressed. I got to tell you, I was so impressed with their defensive effort. Shorthanded as the Eagles were in the back end. I get it. They were at home, and sometimes the Dolphins couldn't hear the snap count and all that. But bottom line is they did a phenomenal job. The size did such a good job. And give his coaches credit. DK McDonald and the other guys in the back end, man. I'm just blown away with the coaching here and the execution by the guys that are filling in.
I'm with you. I think Sean Desai has done a really, really good job. And not just because, we're not the type to say he's doing a good job because his defense is producing. In fact, it's not really ranked that high in a lot of categories, but you watch it, you see what they do on film. You see that they change things up week to week. They add new wrinkles. And when they need stops, they come up with stops. And it's not all just talent. There's a lot of scheme involved too. So I'm impressed with what Sean Desai has been doing so far. Let's move over to Washington now and talk about their injuries. First of all, I'm just surprised that Sam Howell is walking and alive. I every week I wonder, I'm like, oh man, this guy, I hope he's like, I hope he's eating well. I hope he's being a good guy and a good citizen, because, he's really on a fast track to getting, really hurt with how he's playing the game and what he's got protecting him.
So this is, if you thought David Carr got sacked the most in NFL history, I it might have been like 120 times. It's a ridiculous number. And Randall Cunningham, when the Eagles had really bad offensive lines for people a little bit older, might remember how much he was sacked. Where they figured it out here when Banner and Lurie came in and said, okay, we're done with bad offensive lines. Let's start to get it done. But Sam Howell's been sacked 40 times in 7 games. Not one game of less than 4 times. It's ridiculous. I get it. Some's on him. Some is on their bad offensive line. Ron Rivera, great guy, but he does not understand how to build a football team. They've done a terrible job of building their offensive line. Guys playing out of position. And now Sadiq Charles, one of their starting offensive linemen, is hurt. They don't have a lot of guys hurt, but he's one of the guys who got hurt in the last game. So we'll see. They have light injury issues, but it's embarrassing to be sacked that many times. That just can't happen in today's NFL. I know they're running a new scheme under the enemy when he was running back for a year. So the bottom line is they've got to figure this out. He's pretty gutsy. How he's a pretty aggressive thrower. He's pretty athletic, but man, this can't happen. And playing the Eagles defensive line, I get it. You're right. They're not forcing turnovers, but they are getting tremendous pressure. They did a great job. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. And my guy Hassan Reddick has been. We learned a lot about that broken hand, the broken thumb, and the cast. We kind of thought coming in might be a problem. It certainly was. Once he got it off, he was like unleashed.
Oh my God!
And our guy Sweat. Yeah, and our guy Sweat has been. Please make the Pro Bowl. We got to get the national media to understand how good Josh Sweat is, because they have no idea.
That's true. He did make the Pro Bowl. What, 2 years ago? He made it, but or was that as an alternate? I don't remember. But you're right. He needs to get way more notoriety than he's been getting. It's hard because there's, you got your BGs and your Reddicks and your Fletcher Coxes. And by the way, Jordan Davis, we'll get into him. He's starting to emerge. He had a heck of a game too. But yeah, that's why, man, Sam Howell, just eat right, do good things, and hope you make it through these games, because that's rough living right there with how many hits he's taken. All right, we're going to recap this Dolphins game a little bit, give us some of our observations, some of our intel. First, Adam, I love the fall because football's back, but just like you, we have the same lifestyle. Like, we are constantly on the run. We're always busy. We got so much going on. I know for me and my kids, I coach some of their teams. They got youth sports. I don't have time like I normally do the other months of the year to make a nice home cooked meal. And I like to cook. I do cook. My wife cooks. I cook. We make nice home cooked meals. So our new partners, HelloFresh, they are awesome because they deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to the doorstep. You've got some, I've got some from HelloFresh. We want to thank them. The cool thing about HelloFresh is you don't have to waste any time at the grocery store. You don't have to stay in lines. It's America's #1 meal kit because it makes home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't have to research recipes. You don't have to plan out meals because when it comes with all the ingredients that you need, the right amount, and these really cool recipe cards that give you step-by-step instructions on how to make it if you need it, which is really important and very efficient. It saves you time. It saves you money. It's actually 25% less expensive than takeout. So, and by the way, I hate takeout. And in this time of the year, I feel like I'm always like, let's get this place. Let's get pizza. It's all crap food. HelloFresh is healthy. So you can get a healthy meal without digging deep into your wallet. You, Adam, what did you order? I know you were big on a vegetarian meal, right?
Yes, so it's a vegan. So what I had, the first thing I had was the vegan mushroom sandwich. It's as you just said, it's so easy. It took me literally 90 seconds to make it. Had the mushrooms, had the condiments, had the bread, had the roll. The roll was really good. It was all fresh. So I had the recipe card. I put it to my left. Right in front of me, I had the food. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. And I took it on the run with me. I took it actually. I had a tennis workout the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I brought it with me. I ate it in my car. It was so easy.
Nice.
And then we had quesadillas, vegan, which are really good. It's you nail it on the head. It's so easy and convenient, and that's I love that. I've not tried these ready to go meals before. The ones you just put together yourself. But as you said, they send you everything. You don't have to go to the grocery store. It's so easy and so quick, and food's really good. Really enjoyed it.
It's fantastic. And like I said, anything that you can get delivered to your doorstep is just, in this day of Amazon, anything that delivers is unbelievable. So I had the spicy Creole stew the other night and it was fantastic. It was a little bit like a New Orleans type meal, and I'm waiting on, well, I'm not waiting. I have it here. It's a pecan crusted trout that I can't wait to get into that. So love HelloFresh. Great to have them on as partners. If you love, whether you love meat, seafood, vegetarian, all of it, vegan, they have something for you. Just go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles and you'll get 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. You got to act now for America's #1 meal kit. That's HelloFresh. Folks, we're telling you got to get in on it. They're a great deal. And that 50% deal is you're not going to get that anywhere else. So take advantage of it. All right. Final word here on the game against the Dolphins. We'll start with offense because we had a little bit of debate on the pregame show. Are the Eagles going to air it out against that secondary without Xavier Howard? There was a faction that said that. I was part of the faction. I thought they were going to get back to basics and attack a Fangio defense the way you normally do, which is runs, edges, tight end, throw to the running back. And that's what they did. They eventually went deep, and A.J. Brown made the most unbelievable catch that I've probably ever seen. The one where he basically finished the game off with it. Even better than the touchdown that he had. But really, that game was about being patient and taking what the defense gives. And I thought the Eagles did it, especially after that Jets loss, Adam. Hurts. I know he turned the ball over. The interception's not really all. I mean, he's trying to get rid of the ball. They tip it, goes right to the guy, and he returns it for a touchdown. I'd be a little more concerned about the fumble because that's happened a couple of times now, and the Eagles are turning the ball over more than they did last year. But from an attack plan and efficiency, that looked like the Eagles of old, the way they moved the ball and controlled time of possession.
Yeah, they did time possession. I'm going to ask John to flip quarterback's coach at Patreon. The interception where he threw right to the defender and the guy scored. Was there anything he could have thrown it at his feet? Should have done it. Was it avoidable? That's all I want to know. Because look, John coaches the quarterback is better than anyone we know. I'm very curious to know what. Is there anything he could have done? Because seeing it, the replay like 10 times, it seems so ridiculous. Like, could it be just thrown at the guy's head? And is there anything he could have done not to throw an interception there, or is it just unavoidable? I don't know. I'm just curious.
It's a good question. He doesn't have, for a guy who's not 6'4", 6'5", like a Kirk Cousins or like CJ Stroud, right? I think CJ Stroud's pretty tall. For a guy who's on the shorter side of the quarterbacks, he doesn't get a lot of balls tipped at scrimmage Tua has a ton of balls that get batted at scrimmage because he's three step quick. Jalen doesn't normally have that, but in that case, they funneled all that pressure to one side. And you're right, he tried to like get the ball out quickly, but they still were able to get their hands on it. And it just took a perfect ricochet into the guy's hands.
Incredible. Yeah. So look, 10 turnovers, which is,
Too
I thought
much.
Cosell made a good point. Because he's watching the tape like nobody's business. He said before the game, look, the pick that the pick they had against the Jets, which is obviously cannot happen. That's not like Jalen makes a bad mistake. Obviously, mechanics, the drift back, she doesn't do. So you worry about that stuff sometimes when he forces it or doesn't see it real well. That's something we'll keep an eye on. So obviously, a very good quarterback. They just got to curb these turnovers. Their turnover margin is obviously not very good this season. Where last year they were so dominant, and they're not forcing the turnovers like they have, but they're also not they're turning over more than they have. So that those two notes combined, that's not a good thing for a championship type team. Like they are 6-1, they're aware of this. They've got to be more careful. But the good thing is, and although you can make a case, week 4 should have been a penalty. They had no penalties in that game, which is almost a miracle in today's NFL.
I agree with you. And the Miami Dolphins committed several penalties. So that was a big determining factor in this game. Of course, the Dolphins had a touchdown negated by a penalty. And then they kind of put themselves, we'll get into defense in a second, but they put themselves in bad positions for what they do offensively by having penalties. Now, some of those were caused by the Eagles. The negated touchdown was because the left guard had to hold Jalen Carter for dear life. Because Jalen Carter was manhandling him, I believe. I think it was Jalen Carter. So yeah, you caused that by being good too. But there were also some weird penalties that the Dolphins just, shot themselves in the foot with. One thing offensively that I'm still, even after watching the All-22, I can't figure out, Adam, is the thinking behind Kenny Gainwell getting 8 carries and DeAndre Swift getting 15. I thought watching the game that Swift was the better choice because Dolphins front was coming at him. They were fast, they were aggressive. The linebackers were shooting the gaps all the time against the run, and the safety would come in late. And I thought when you watched DeAndre Swift run, even when the Dolphins called the right type of defense, he was able to get skinny through the hole, or that one play where he kind of reversed direction, made somebody miss, caught the ball, made somebody miss, got extra yards. And as we've said with Kenneth Gainwell many times, that's just not Kenneth Gainwell's game. He's just more grind it, be consistent. So I was surprised. I don't think it was even a very RPO centric game plan. It was more, again, pitch and catch on the outsides, take what the defense gives. So I'm not really sure about why Kenneth Gainwell had that many carries.
Well, he had the short yardage where he scored, but I have on my list because Penny has not worked out. We all thought Penny would be the guy who'd not only be involved, but he would give them the size that they badly needed running back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because he's not done that, it's just something they need to add. It doesn't have to be the trade deadline. Could they get someone out there? Leonard Fournette is phenomenal, believe it or not, in pass protection. Somebody. Is there anyone out there with size who's still in the street? We'll look into it. Because if you're not going to use Penny, I get it. He's just insurance. He's not going to play, obviously. They have no role for him. Then they still need that size back. Since Penny's not working out, they still need some size protection for Swift because you just talked about it. Swift had 15 carries in the game and he had 18 total touches.
Mm-hmm.
He's headed now for major career highs in everything. If by miracle he stays healthy this season, you're asking for a lot of luck here. So I'm just looking at their inability to find Penny a role here to complement the backfield. I mean, I can't. Is he that bad that they can't even let him get 4 or 5 carries? Gosh, what happened?
You're making a great point, and I'm trying to figure out the long game here because there has to be that. Because why did you keep Rashad Penny over Trey Sermon? I know Sermon got hurt, but you still could have, brought him back after he got healthy. You had the first dibs on him. Why would you do that? Let him go and keep Penny, but then not play Penny at all. It just doesn't make sense to me. Unless there's a long game here and they think by like November that Penny's going to be better conditioned and more with it. And, he did get sick, I think a week or two ago. So maybe that set him back a little bit. I don't know. He had an illness, but I don't know. Doesn't make much sense to me. But right now, if you have opportunities to give DeAndre Swift the ball, he's running tough, he's running hard, he's making people miss. I'm not trying to give that many carries to Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, short yardage, sure. But in general, I'm just trying to give, I know they're trying not to overload DeAndre Swift because of the injuries too. So I get that. But in these tight games, and even though the Eagles dominated the game, it was tied third quarter, right? I'm trying to get DeAndre Swift involved, man.
I hear you, and the other thing is Hurts, he's got this left leg injury.
Yeah.
He's playing, that's the question. But we asked the guys many weeks ago. Remember, first couple weeks we thought Hurts, we didn't think he was hurt. He just didn't look explosive running. We know how strong he is running it. But I don't think he looks explosive running it, even before this leg injury. I don't think he's looked as good as last year running it. Certainly
Clearly.
made a couple superhuman plays, but I still think they could use another back. They're in a penny for $600,000, big deal. But they just seem inclined to keep him on the roster for now. There's been we've heard no buzz about them releasing him. But my point again is, what's the point of keeping him if you're not going to use him? It's just wasting time for me. But oh well.
Sure. Last thing on the offense, we talked about the screen to Dallas Goedert, and again, I think that was, you saw right from the start, Miami was, like I said, they were shooting. The linebackers, by the way, for the Dolphins are way better than I knew. The Baker kid, 55, he's pretty fast. He's athletic. He's a nice player. And they were really getting downhill fast. They were bringing a safety in late. They would show too high, but if they thought the Eagles would run, they were going to get that safety right into the box. So I'm pretty sure by I think it was the second or third possession when they scored the Dallas Goedert touchdown, they felt like the Dolphins were going to blitz there, which they did, and they called up the perfect time for that screen, because really all Dallas Goedert needed, what he had was the outside receiver was Devontae Smith, maybe making one block, and then he had Jordan Mailata, who the only person Mailata had to block was the other safety, because everybody else was rushing the quarterback, right? So that was like a nice clear path for Dallas Goedert, and I thought it was a really nice play call by Brian Johnson and the offensive staff at the right time. Good marriage. Whole game was a good marriage of run and pass. I liked it.
Well, it's what I have in my notes. This is a good match between the pass and run game, which we haven't really talked about a lot, because we know they want to be a pass team, and it was more of a balanced attack. And it wasn't just the first half play calls; it was just overall the balance between the two. They kind of mixed it up, which it was good to see. But you've got AJ Brown, who's not only is the most dominant receiver since Owens. I get it. DK Metcalf is taller. Brown is actually shorter than 6'1". He's 6 feet, 7/10 of an inch. But show me another receiver that plays through contact like this guy. He's unbelievable. And I remember at the time of the trade, I said to you, don't get caught up on his numbers with Tennessee when they weren't as great. It has nothing to do with him. It's about the structure.
Mm-hmm.
When your offense is based on your running back, which nobody, like right now, very few teams believe in starting your offense with a particular running back. It's more your belief in the run first, but not so much the player. The Titans have been the player and the run, Derrick Henry centric.
Sure.
So you go here where they want to throw the football, and this guy, do we call him unstoppable?
The whole Terrell Owens thing is starting to really, like, the play strength. When people I think Terrell Owens, and I'm not an expert, but maybe we'll ask Jason Devon about this on the pregame show. I think T.O. probably ran a more expansive route tree, but as far as just the ability to make yards after catch, to play with tremendous strength, I don't know if there's that much of a difference between AJ Brown and T.O. I mean, he's special, man. We're watching something that's really special in AJ Brown.
It's at 5 straight with 100 plus.
5 straight with 125. The only person to do that is in the modern era is Calvin Johnson.
2012, right? That's right. This guy's special. He's a leader. Plays through. I know he's not listening to injury, but he's got these creaky knees. That's a big reason why the Titans traded him. It's just remarkable what he's done here. No one seems to be able to stop him. I'm so interested to see what teams do going forward. The Washington plays match, carry, deliver. They changed their scheme last year. I'm interested to see what not only that, but the Chiefs you mentioned earlier, they're playing great defense in secondary. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
What Spags have for them?
That's all they needed to be even better on defense. It's like
I know. They're playing great. And then obviously Devontae, look, you can't, as we keep saying, you can't have all three do great each week.
Right.
But one of the reasons why we liked Goddard in this last game, as we talked about it, is because in Fangio he plays a lot of cover three. John Duke told us that when you play Fangio, you mentioned this, the edges, but you also use their voids in cover three and all the zone coverages. You have to find them. The Eagles found them. And also, obviously, they got matchups which they liked because Xavier and Howard didn't play, and they knew where they were going to win.
Oh, yeah.
Because Eli Apple is good. We talked about in the pregame. They're going after Eli Apple. They did.
Yes.
And
The other guy, too, whose name I forgot. But yeah. Yeah. Because there were times, Adam, where they, again, the Fangio style defense, you'll have a lot of comebacks, right? You're going to face a lot of man principles within zone because if you got guys on the outside and they're playing a little bit off, that's man on man, even though it's within a zone, right? So there were times where, at least 5 or 6 times, where Jalen Hurts was like, nope, I know I have a guy right here over the middle, but I also have my best wide receiver who's about to run a comeback against off coverage there, and he's got the separation already. So he would just go right to the outsides and be able to move the sticks that way. And that's part of the bend but don't break, and the Eagles would take it, and then finally they would hit one good, like whether it's one to AJ Brown or the screen to Dallas Goedert or just a big play that would break Miami's back there. They were able to execute. All right, you want to go over to defense?
Yep, do it.
All right, before we do that, we're going to tell you about our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto, so make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, please be sure to tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. Well, I don't know if we sound blue in the, like a broken record or get tired. It all starts up front for the Eagles, and they dominated up front. Jason Avant and Quentin Michael made a great point. Usually your running game starts with your defensive line getting that like pressure or that holding up the block, and then your linebackers come in and make the tackles. But it was amazing how many big tackles against this great run offense of Miami were actually made by defensive linemen. The first 5 or 6, 7 carries where Mosher got stopped by Reddick, he got stopped by Sweat, he got stopped by Jordan Davis. They were bullying that offensive line.
Yeah, he couldn't get the cutback lanes in their zone run scheme. He just couldn't get it. He did have a 20-some-odd yard run in the third quarter, but
yeah, they started to kind of funnel it out away from those guys. Yeah.
In fact, that's, if you remember what the enemy did against the Eagles, he said, we're not running inside.
Right.
They had Brian Robinson running sort of sideways and then cut up field. He had some success against the Eagles in the first matchup. Jordan Davis is playing so well. Like, he's come a long way here. Like, I know part of it is because he got himself in a better shape. He's motivated. He knows about the responsibility put on him, and once again decides to change up to the front. The previous game he started 4 defensive tackles. This week he started 3.
Mm-hmm.
Milton Williams technically started again. He was out there for the first play with Davis and Cox.
Yep. He
stand up Sweaty and Reddick. It is in my notes here. We talked to someone in scouting with another team who said that it's not even close in terms of Gannon versus Desai, the diverse coverages. And also the fronts and how Desai mixes up his coverages from game to game and his philosophies to post-snap disguise.
Right.
He does a great job going pre-snap, post-snap. Guy's really good. Now, we'll see the rest of the schedule. It's going to get harder, but you got to give him credit. And when he gets some of these players in and gets Byard in here, we'll see how he uses them.
Mm-hmm.
He gets Blankenship back and potentially Roby soon, whenever that happens. But you got to give the guy credit. And this guy, I thought this was a good note, said if you watch, because he saw some of the Eagles tape last year over the summer, he said he watched, he's assigned the Eagles this year, so he's watching now. It goes, it's like a day between. Gannon did a good job, but he's doing more with less. The side. It's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way, to put it. Even the touchdown, the first half touchdown to Tyreek Hill, that's not a bad call. It's a safety in Terrell Edmonds who's not understanding his assignment of bracket coverage. Bracket doesn't mean you get really close to Tyreek Hill and let him get right past you. It means you've got to play the angle correctly and keep it in front and make sure that if the ball is in the air, that you have enough time to get back there and make a play. And if he beats you and makes a catch over you, okay. But and it would have been nice if Bradbury got his hands on Tyreek Hill a little bit there, but still Edmonds comes way up and gets himself way out of position. That should have never happened. But it happened. And so, that we know that they did not want to play Terrell Edmonds all year long. They had to, and then it hurt them in that situation. But in general, I would say, I think Desai probably did the right thing. He didn't do as much to Scott. He played a lot of 2 deep safeties, trying to keep everything in front. And I do think the Dolphins, the structure of their offense to play condensed, all those wide receivers are so tight to the line of scrimmage because they're trying to keep those edges clear for their reverses and motions and all that. That helped the Eagles out in the fact that they played probably more base defense than they did all year long.
Which is, I think, what we predicted they might.
Yeah.
Depending on, because the Dolphins, Cedric Wilson is kind of more or less taken over with
Barrios.
With River Craycraft getting hurt, former Eagle legend. River Craycraft, or that's their third receiver, believe it or not.
Yeah, he alternated with Barrios, and I couldn't figure out what the difference or what they were looking for. Clearly, with Wilson, they wanted a guy who could maybe throw the football if he got the ball tossed to him. Like, remember that wide receiver option pass where Tua tosses Cedric Wilson the ball, and he's trying to look down. He's got nobody to throw. I didn't even understand that because he had nobody to throw the ball to.
That was weird. Cedric Wilson, he signed an enormous contract right before they made the trade for Tyreek Hill last year. They didn't know they were going to do that.
Right.
But overall, just super impressed with the execution. Yep. Honestly, I think we all agree. We thought it'd be a much more high scoring game. Unless you did. Did you go lower?
No, I actually said I thought it would be lower scoring. I had like 27-23. Yeah.
The 3 of us did, me, Yvonne, and Greg. But the one issue that showed up in this game, and you mentioned it with Edmonds, is the lack of the depth at safety. For Edmonds to play the entire game, that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. That can't happen. I get it. They had injuries; it was unpreventable. But they still need another safety. To be honest with you, they need depth. The guy didn't have to start once you need him to, but they need a depth guy. You nailed that earlier in the show. That's an issue. And the young kids, I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, how well Eli Ricks has played in whatever role they give him.
Yeah.
Boy, he's been a surprise. Josh Job's done a nice job. Josiah Scott, by the way, fans kill the kid on Twitter. He gets thrown in there. He just got out of the Steelers practice squad. Just got over a hamstring problem. It was a good job.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, he held the Miami Dolphins to 10 offensive points, right? I mean, everybody did a good job. So, yeah. So good stuff. All right, that's our midweek mashup. On Friday, of course, we'll have a great preview of this upcoming Eagles Commanders game, which offers a whole lot of fascinating storylines unto itself. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.